Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing?
Very well.
Welcome to our grant proposal workshop. It's a 50-minute workshop. We'll just make sure that you all take away a lot of things from this 50 minutes. There will be a lot of stuff going on. We will have some people coming in, but we are going to start at 8 o'clock just because we have a lot to cover. Uh, my name is Asit Misra, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes, help introduce ourselves. So I'm a medical physician by my training. I work at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, assistant professor. I also work as assistant director of pre-hospital emergency training division at the Gordon Center at UM. Background a little bit, in fellowships, other is a teaching fellowships and ADM, all that stuff I've done on during my training, but here I am, and I'm gonna pass my other faculty members, tremendous faculty members that have joined from the grants committee. They are all here to share their wisdom. So Diana, do you?
I'm Diana. I'm a pediatric ER doc at Mount Sinai. I work at one of those more community academic mixed hospitals, Mount Sinai Water site.
I'm Liz Berner. I'm at the University of Southern California, and I'm also the grants committee chair for SAEM. So we were really excited to put together a quick dip into thinking about writing a grant.
My name is Michael McSara. I'm over at Northwell Health in New York. Associate professor at Center School of Medicine. I'm also on the grants committee. I'm one of the work group leads in this latest round of grant reviews. But I've been on that committee for a couple of years, and then also on subcommittees in the simulation, education studies, and homes, organizations.
And at last, I'm just going to introduce quickly Yvette Matola. She was phenomenal in putting together this proposal with me. She couldn't come because her son is graduating this week from school, so apologies from her side, but she really wanted to be with you all. Again, things that she has done supported with us, so definitely big thanks to Yvette. Disclosures, there's no financial relationship with any legal companies. No one is paying for my trip to Disney here so far. I couldn't figure out why. So here's what we're going to do. We just introduce ourselves. I'm going to introduce the objectives a little bit more. Then we just go over some of the basics of writing grant proposal for 15 minutes, and then we'll break out for 4 groups for a group exercise, make sure that we go over some proposals and see and critique them, in groups. And then we'll come back and then we'll hear from the groups, like what they found in their sections of that grant proposal. And then we'll have some Q&A and that's it. So that's how the 15 minutes going to fly by. Here are the objectives of the workshop. So we're going to summarize the important sections of a education grant proposal. Then we're going to go and explain do's and don'ts of a grant proposal when you write. And if you're a novice, you're trying to come into this realm of writing grant proposals. Definitely you need to know what are the do's, what are the don'ts, And then we'll discuss the reasons of rejection of a grant proposal together. And maybe when we go out, we will make sure, okay, I don't need to do this because that might reject my possibilities of getting funded. So those are the 3 things. So I'm going to start with something, and tell me just whether you guys have ever applied for a grant proposal. Anyone? I've applied. So a lot of it, that's why everyone is here like at 7:45 because you guys won some funding. So how did that process work for you? So there are things, sometimes when we are sitting, working with our busy lives in ERs and education, doing whatever we do, and then something, hey, there's a seed funding opportunity, and the department chair tells us, hey, there's this funding opportunity, we want to apply for this. Happens, yeah? And then, there's this funding opportunity, what should I do? Oh, I don't have any idea. What project? Where? And then we start looking for ideas. That's the thing that we need to stop. We have to have our ideas for projects beforehand, and then we need to look for opportunities that the idea can be funded. Why this is important? Because if you are trying to fit your idea into funding, after the funding comes out, definitely there will be a misalignment. And those are the things that the reviewers look at and say, yeah, this is not something that I'm going to fund because this doesn't matter. This is not exactly what I'm trying to fund. This idea is totally different. I'm not going to fund it. So have your ideas ready beforehand and then look for the things that are there. It works for all types of grant funding opportunities. Doesn't matter if it's your education, institutional grant, seed grant, or NIH level grant. You have to have your project ideas beforehand. Okay. Now, once you have the ideas ready, oh, you're in the room. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm gonna go hide behind this podium. Yeah, so once your idea is ready, there are two mechanisms. One is letter of intent, and then other is some agencies just want your proposal directly. What is letter of intent? So letter of intent is something, a kind of pre-screening tool. What do you use for that? I'm a funding agency. I just want to, I'm getting like thousands of applications. I don't want to go over reviewing all those thousands of applications. So I want a screening tool which kind of tells me, gives a screenshot, snapshot of what exactly this proposal is about. So when you're putting your letter of intent together, think like it's a mini abstract, okay? So it should have your aims and objectives, it should have your background, it should have your method, statistical method sampling that you are trying to do, it should have a brief budget proposal in there, and then it should have your outcomes listed. But again, this is not a full grant proposal. This is something that they just want to quickly look at it, and then based on that LOI, they can say, you know, this LOI sounds good. I think we should get the full grant proposal. So then they'll reach out back to you and they say, hey, Asit, I love your LOI. Why don't you submit your full grant proposal? So that's LOI. So some funding agencies like that LOIs, and some will just say, send the request for proposal. You know, they just want your full proposal beforehand. So there are two ways of doing it. Whenever you see LOI, make sure you use it as a tool to sell your project idea. Make it as much as persuasive as you can. That's how you sell it, because if you are failing to sell that thing, they are not going to buy it. Okay? So that's about it. And now I'm going to ask Diana to lead from here.
All right, so these are the different sections of a grant proposal, from the top, title and abstract, going all the way around to the very end, appendices. We're going to, as we go through this PowerPoint presentation, we're going to be going through each section. So the first section, title and abstract. So you definitely want your title to be concise, and have it be a really strong title, because this is what is going to attract the person to come, right? Like you guys saw our title today, you were attracted to come. And so just like that, you want your title to be something that people are like, oh, this is a good hook. This is what I want to look at. And then the abstract should be brief and clear, cover the problem statement, needs, research design, methods, any anticipated outcomes, or like implications of your research. The abstract a lot of times is the first thing people will skim through to figure out if they're like, okay, well, this will give me a sense, kind of that first impression, right? When we meet someone, we get a lot from that very first few seconds, that first impression. You really want to make a good first impression, so that abstract is your first impression. And then background and problem statement. So this is where you build your case. You mention current literature, the gaps in our current literature, and then you offer ways to solve that problem, right? Like how do we build a project in order to solve this gap that's in the literature? And it's really important to look at make sure it's like timely, there's relevance to the field, and then most importantly that there's some like alignment with what the funding agency wants to see, right? Like what's their mission statement, and how can I make my project fit their mission statement, so that they're like, though this will further my mission statement and further what I want to get out.
I think we wanted to make sure that we were explicitly clear about talking about literature review. So in some grant proposals, there'll be a specific section on this, but most of them, this is something you're going to work into your background and your objectives and your problem statement. There's a few reasons you need to do this. So your grant should have many citations in it, right? It should have a very thorough literature review. And one, it demonstrates that you've like done your work and you've looked to see what's out there. But I think sometimes you might like have proposed something that has already been studied in some way, and you really need to highlight how what you're doing is a new
group of learners or a new patient population or a new methodology for measuring something. And so that thorough literature review, it's not that you can't replicate studies, but you need to add what you're bringing that's new. And I think also, especially for education proposals, that thorough literature review helps you ground your educational intervention in an existing educational framework, right? There should be some theory that you are using to build out your proposal. And so you really need that thorough literature review that shows that you've done that work. And I would say like something for your literature review that is helpful, because sometimes you might have gotten some citations from maybe your mentor and your fellowship. You built up like a really thorough literature review. Make sure you're still updating that, right? So if all your citations are from like 20 years ago, right, but you're proposing something new and novel, there's a gap there between what your literature review is documenting, right, and what you're proposing now. So just make sure you keep those updated. It's really easy to fall back on something you maybe did a while ago, but you have to keep it updated if you want to get funded. And then the specific aims is actually a really special page for a grant proposal. And if you've never written one before, you're like, why, right? And it's kind of like when you read an H&P. And maybe the first time that a med student writes an H&P, they like put the history and physical completely out of order. They like tell you about their allergies before the presenting complaint, all those things that would drive you crazy, right? Same thing for a grant proposal. If you're doing things out of order or not in the expected framework, your reviewer has to like pick it apart and try to figure out what's going on. You want their job to be easy. So make sure that you specifically address each research question you're going to have, a little bit about the study design. There's a little bit, I don't actually agree with this as a philosophy, but there's a little bit more about mechanistic research as opposed to effectiveness research that's been coming out. And this is really where you would add in your preliminary data and really look at what a spec aims page looks like when you're preparing your grant proposal. And then you get into your research design and your proposed methods. Really make sure that they align with your spec aims page, right? If there's a mismatch there, it's very confusing to a reviewer and they have to like read through it 12 times trying to figure out which one is correct, right? You don't want that. You want them to read your proposal straight through, makes total sense, everything aligns. If you are doing anything quantitative, you should have a power analysis on that, right? There's, that's something I would team with a mentor if that's not your skill set, right? You really want to make sure that if you're measuring something with numbers, you've done some kind of power analysis, that you have a large enough group to be showing a difference. And diagrams, flow charts, things that show how people would be measured before and after an intervention, all of those things can really help your reviewer stay on board with your proposal.
And so, so far we've really spoken about the what, the why, the how. What's the problem gap hook? That's a nice heuristic to use. And what's the importance of the work that you want to do? Now let's talk about the feasibility. And that's where this part of the grant proposal really has to shine. So if you think about like the timeline and deliverables, that's one way that you show feasibility of the work. Can I actually accomplish what I set out to accomplish? And to do this well, you'd want to develop something that's easy to read. You want something that's realistic. You have to have it within the time frame of the grant funding period. And you want to make sure that it's very clear to the reviewers. Plan for unanticipated delays if you can. Try to build some redundant time in there somewhere in the timeline. Because there are always challenges with the IRB. If you have a multi-site study, that the coordination of that can always be fraught with problems. Recruitment can always be a challenge. So include that into the timeline. Include a plan also for the dissemination of the study results. Include exactly like how you plan to disseminate, and a multimodal approach to dissemination is probably good if it fits within the feasibility of the proposal. Like if you're only getting $5,000, you might have to scale that back. If you're getting 150 or $1 million, then you have a little bit more room. Again, visualizations are key. A table or a Gantt chart. This is a Gantt chart. Those are great. Now, so it's complicated, but it's much better to sort of visualize this, and you have some simple binary color coding here that sort of makes it easy to sort of see where you are and where you're going and what's the feasibility of that. And sometimes detail is good. Sometimes detail has to be scaled back a bit, and there's a tension always between providing too much and not enough. Regarding the budget and the justification, just take these two words together. You need the budget, like how much money are you going to get, and then the justification for the money you're requesting. And that's, again, speaks to the feasibility. You want to have a line item summary of everything that you need the grant to fund, and then you need a good justifiable explanation of the costs. If you have any questions, just contact the grant program officer. If the guidelines are not clear about what's covered, what's not covered, when you get into direct and indirect, it can be really confusing. I still have to think about that. It has to be clear why you're requesting and what you're requesting. Maybe this last piece, there's two other last pieces I'll just describe. One is the personnel. The feasibility is critical and the personnel that you include on the study team is also critical in supporting the feasibility. So if you're going to make that claim that, hey, I can do the work that we've just described and we already showed why it's important and what it is and how we're going to do it, if you don't have the personnel that sort of line up with that, then that's going to sort of fall down and that's going to be real problematic. Likewise, if you have personnel that can really embellish and sort of really strengthen and support your proposal, and then this is going to be key. So they can be part of the grant writing team too. In fact, they should be part of the grant writing team. You should sort of marshal them as the PI and do that. Set clear expectations for the team members. Have a purpose why people are there, but then pick people that can really support the different aspects of your program. And then passion sometimes is as important as the expertise they bring, although I have to say this, the special expertise that each person brings to the table should be clear in the application. Finally, there is this section of appendices. Use this for any supporting evidence or any other reference materials, tools, instruments, whatnot, that you need to include, but you don't have space for. So the appendices can be key for that. Try including all the required information in the proposal itself, though. They have to, because sometimes proposals get divided apart by section and divided among different reviewers, and different reviewers do different things. It depends on the grant. Like NIH is different than, let's say, SAEM grant committee and so forth. But nevertheless, you want to provide all the required information to make the project understandable and the feasibility of such work in the proposal itself. And so in the appendices, you may put in certifications, letters of support, and other sorts of stuff. I'm going to hand it off back to Asit.
Yeah. Okay. So we had the introduction, and we had a couple of things that we would recommend to do better. Generally, the introduction was quite wordy. We said that it would be better to keep it quite concise, and that there were multiple streams of thought and kind of points of emphasis that made it quite challenging to follow along and kind of understand what the proposal writer, author was trying to get at. So we said it's important to keep it concise and to have a single primary goal that's clearly stated and topic area. Also, just more generally, there were quite a few typos and formatting issues, different fonts that made it quite unaesthetic. We would recommend to have peers kind of proofread it before submitting.
Avoidable errors.
Avoidable errors, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. You have anything to add? Group 2. Where is our group 2?
Hello. Did we all look at the same one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we thought that the issues were that there wasn't a clear gap, and also if the study isn't funded, then we're not sure what the downside of that is. So we don't really know what the impact of the project is. And what was the other thing? Oh, we thought the aims were a little over ambitious. There were 3 aims for $7,000, and thought that could be reined in a little bit. Anything else?
Is there anything you like out of that? It's very hard for us to find good stuff.
The data, maybe the inclusion of in the rationale. It didn't say something about the proof. There was some data.
There was preliminary data. That's always helpful when you're pitching a grant.
Huh?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Coming back to group 3, who's reporting? Oh, you guys are group 3, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll just, you guys can decide who's reporting.
We thought that this lacked just generally attention to detail and seemed that there was little mentorship in this. And then just some of the clerical errors made it so difficult to read. So, similar.
A lot of formatting issues going on there, yeah. Group 4,
We noticed a lot of the same things. They did not use Excel, it appears, so the numbers for the budget did not add up. It's actually 7,900 as opposed to the cap of 7,500. There are also some math problems, like 12 times 4 is not equal to 42. So we'd recommend, again, more attention to detail. and a little bit more explanation of the budget. Like there for travel took up like half the budget. So, can they realistically do this project that amount of money? And then we were looking at some of the items on there, like torso trainers with feedback, and they were able to get it for like $110. And everyone here was like, really? Where can I get that for $110? So, yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for just critically reviewing it. It took 10 minutes. The whole idea behind this was also to put on those lenses of a reviewer and to identify these mistakes. When we write those proposals, now at least we'll know like things that can be avoided. There are things that you can always improve upon, but there are things that you can easily avoid and get away from rejection. So this was a little exercise. Everyone quickly found things, major errors, but now if you're reviewing a grant proposal, you'll find even more errors, like different fonts, for example, like why we ended up having different fonts, different font size, different spacing, things like, anyone can just fix it quickly. Otherwise, what happens? And think about if this was an NIH grant proposal, what's going to happen? Screening stage tossed out, because it will be injustice for those who have followed the guidelines meticulously, and now I'm allowing someone who has not followed. Why would I allow that person? Okay, so I will just make it very certain that I have things that grants from people who are following it. Now, any questions we have related more to the sections, but I'm going to move on, a few things, few rules, and then we'll come back for questions again. So as we reviewed the grant, we saw a few things, but very important is that when someone was reporting, you have to be concise and clear. And you have to be clear in your ideas, how you are trying to communicate that idea. This is rule number one. And I would request you all to just find this little publication that came out from Born and Chalupa in 2006, 10 Rules of Successful Grant Writing. If you find that article, a lot of things, these are not my rules. No, these are all adopted from their publication, but these are the simplistic ones, and you can really learn more about how to make those rules, follow those rules, and avoid rejections. Background work and data. Again, use that to support your proposal, because if as a reviewer I see that they have done something, this group has done something, they have some background work, this is not something that is just they are thinking, they are dreaming about, but they really have some concise data that is supporting what they're trying to get more funding for. So that is sometimes good, but also this is a double-edged sword. Some funding agencies really want a very novel idea. They are really going to fund something that is really new. There's not a lot of background work that's been done. There's not much data that is available, because sometimes if you have a lot of data available, what's going to happen? You say you already have things. Why you need more funding? You already have something done. So be careful about when you are reporting, and just read the instructions, what kind of project they're going to support. Is it novice, very novel idea that they're supporting, or they really need something that have some pilot work data available? Then find the funding mechanism and be specific. Again, as I mentioned, ideas need to be first. So you have to have your ideas beforehand, and then you try to find the funding mechanism. This is one of the major rules of writing a grant proposal. Have that ready, and then look for, okay, I have this. Do I have an institutional seed grant? Do I have any other grant from the society? As SAEM has a lot of them. Do I have a national level, NIH level grant that can support depending on what your project is, what your idea is? Okay, then you go out and look in the market what's available. And as we just mentioned, comply with the guidelines. If they want the proposal in 10 pages, it should be 10 pages. They want all those things. Again, this is easily one of the things that if we follow, at least we are not tossed out in the screening stage. So please comply with the guidelines. Read the request proposal document very carefully, 2 times, 3 times, whatever it takes. Now, the other thing is, you have to have some time to review your grant. we write something and we know there's a fixation error that happens. We always get fixated on things that we are writing, and we don't look, we overlook on some of those errors. So have a friend, a colleague, hey, this is my proposal, can you just look over it? Ask someone who has been funded in your department, and they can look over it and tell you, hey, these are things that I think you need to improve upon. Have someone who's really not even related to grant writing process, just someone who's good in just plain English, with grammar, just proofread your proposal and get all the stylistic errors fixed. That is very important. And become a grant reviewer. So any one of you, are you reviewing a grant at your in your institution? If you are not, and you are into you are trying to get some funding, try to join some kind of grant review committee, either institutional or in the society, and do it. Because once you do it, you exactly know what are those errors that I can avoid. And the best thing is that when we review the grants, actually the committees, then they meet and discuss each grant, why they have scored, the reviewers have scored this way. And then if we learn, these are the things that I need to avoid, and I'm putting a grant together. Because once we all discuss together, we see these are the things that's why I scored this section, this grant so high, and this is why I want to reject this grant. So this is how we learn becoming a grant reviewer. Same like peer reviewer for journals. When you peer review, you learn how to make yourself better. Same concept. Again, rejection is part of the process. You have to. I have secured grants, and my grants proposals were rejected. It's okay. This is part of the process. Now, once your grant is rejected, what can you do? They sometimes send you feedback, like why they ended up rejecting. There's a nice feedback that you'll receive. Maybe next time when you submit you will go back, change the things depending on the feedback. And also, if your grant was really scored very high, still it got rejected, you can use that in your cover letter that, hey, last time I submitted a topic, I really secured very high point, but because of few minor things, I couldn't secure funding. This year, I have changed this, and these are the things. Put it in your cover letter so that they know that this was a really good proposal last time, but they had really other proposals that really got more points, and that's why it got rejected. So you can use that as something to build upon your case. So that's your rejection. Now, what are other common reasons for rejection? Let me tell you, NIH grant funding, what is happening? You see the numbers here? So 1 out of 5 proposals are only funded at NIH. That's the 2023 data. NSF, same thing. 1 out of 3 proposals are being funded. So that's very important for us. Then what other things that are important? Incomplete proposals, missing sections that we saw here, plagiarism, and incorrect formatting. All these things are very common reasons. These are all avoidable. Plagiarism, again, this is like biggest thing. You are not citing someone. I just reviewed some grant recently. The whole proposal had no citations, no references, nothing. I mean, how can you write something without any citations, references? It's not all your ideas, your background work, all that. So proposal is not persuasive enough. You are not selling your idea. You have to be like a marketing person when you're writing those proposals. So make it more persuasive. Incorrect grammar, spelling mistakes. Again, have someone just proofread it. Nowadays, you can use technology to help you. Inconsistent information, that's so important. So what happens? A lot of different people write the things. We have duplicate information in different sections because one person doesn't know, right hand doesn't know what left hand is writing, and then we have all those things pasted together as a proposal. So you don't want to do that. Missing details, how the research project will be completed. So Gantt charts, something granular can help, how you're going to finish it. Evaluation plan is not matching your objectives. You have 3 good objectives, but how you're going to evaluate the success of those objectives, that is not matching. That's another thing. And well, it is not aligned. Your proposal is not aligned with the funding opportunity. The body which wants to fund something and your proposal is completely different. Again, please try to avoid. These are very common reasons for rejection. By using these things, keeping these in your mind, you can avoid it. So final tips. Start early. Have a team to help you. It's always, don't wait for the dead end. Don't be a procrastinator when you're trying to submit a grant proposal. Have enough time. Follow the format all the time, every time. Follow the formatting guidelines. Have someone else in your shop, your friend, colleague to review your proposal, help with a very critical lens, not just to make you feel better that, hey, become as bad as you can and tell me what's wrong, what I need to improve. And that's, honesty is the key here. Ask questions to the grant project officers, managers, hey, what about budget, what about this, what about that? Ask them all those questions. They're there to help you. They can tell you this is covered, this is not covered, all those kind of things. Final thing is you have to be passionate about your project. If you're not passionate about your project, no one's going to fund it. You have to be passionate. You have to sell your project to people. That's about it. Any questions? And this is the quote I really like, it always seems impossible until it's done. So once you start writing it, once you get your first one, and then you will know the whole process. Thank you very much. Any final questions for us, for the team? And again, I want to thank the grant committee for putting this together and helping us. And any questions you have, our emails, these things are available. The slides are available for you to download, and just let us know. We'll be happy to answer those. Thank you.